Awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started here. First of all, I want to thank everybody for making the time, coming out to TKG to kind of talk a little bit about digital advertising, how companies are utilizing it today, what are the most effective buckets to be putting your dollars in, how can you generate more revenue. I hope that we're going to have a great discussion here. I would just say I invite everyone, if you have questions, there will be a question period at the end, but feel free to make this a conversation. Blurt them out, raise your hand, however you feel comfortable. So I'm Tommy Karcher. I'm an account manager here at TKG. I've been here for about 10 years officially, but been around the business my whole life. So I'll go ahead and let our great panelists kind of introduce themselves, where they're from and why they're here.
All right. Well, first off, I'm Ryan Smith. I'm a digital marketing specialist here at TKG. You can see that picture is nice and touched up. So, and then we have Roberto here representing GMS. They're our largest digital advertising client on our team. So really excited to kick it off. Roberto?
Yeah, Vice President of Marketing at Group Management Services. We are a PEO, so a professional employer organization, which means we are basically an outsourced HR company. So we specialize in payroll, HR services, employee benefits, and risk management.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you very much. So I think it would be good to start with kind of a baseline. What is digital advertising, right? A lot of us in the room are probably marketers, understand some of the lingo, but just to kind of get us on the same wavelength, Ryan, do you mind sharing kind of the different buckets of digital advertising and maybe some common terms?
Yeah, so first off, we can start with this paid search, PPC, SEM, however you want to call it. This is your classic Google ads that you see with the sponsored results at the top of the SERP. And then there's also paid social. Obviously, you got your big platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all tied into Meta. And then also some other smaller ones. You got your Reddits, your Snapchats, those kinds of things. Moving forward from that, there's also programmatic. That's the big one nowadays. Everybody's talking about. Those are any display or video ads that you see on websites as you're scrolling news sites, that sort of thing. And then there's also streaming television, CTV, OTT. Those are the terms that we use. OTT means over the top. That means streaming that's going to be on small devices. So your phone, your tablet, your laptop. And then CTV is streaming TV that's going to be on a television. So that's going to be any smart TV running Hulu, Peacock, those sorts of things. And then besides that, you have your digital advertising that's out of the home. Those are your digital billboards, any kind of moving screen that's over by like a bus stop, that sort of thing.
I'll boil that down to a very simple sentence. A lot of acronyms. Basically anything online where your customers might be spending time.
That's a nice and short way of saying that.
I'll truncate it just a little bit for you.
And you can pay to get in front of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll even argue that back in the day, advertising meant you're paying for those eyeballs. This day and age, I think you can get away with free advertising if you don't have the budget. I know that goes against the trend of what advertising truly is, but if you're a small business, you're a mom and pop shop and you have no money to spend on advertising, you could literally set up a bevy of things online, digitally, and get eyeballs. Are you going to get as many? Probably not. But it's still there, you're advertising, you're promoting yourself, and you're out there. So whether it's paid dollars or free dollars, it's still advertising in my mind.
An example of those free dollars would be like organic social, that sort of thing.
Organic social, a lot of small shops, they don't have the resources to build a website, so they create a Facebook page. Or they just have a number of social platforms that they tie together and say, here's our presence. I'm sure we've all been online where you Google a favorite restaurant and you click on it and it goes straight to Facebook. It has all the details, all their specials, all the pictures, so it does the same job, just not as effective.
Awesome. So I'm curious, from you guys' perspective, let's pretend we're a small company and we have $500 a month that we can put into some sort of advertising or marketing. What are the first channels to look at, and where can you kind of dip your toe in and start testing some waters with a modest budget?
Well, knowing that your goals are going to be where you begin, not where with the platforms, what you first want to look at is make sure that your CRM and your sales funnel is set up properly so that when you do run paid advertising, that you actually can tie the results back and you know the reporting. So invest in your CRM first, invest in the whole sales pipeline first, and then when you get into digital advertising, the first thing for you to probably look at is going to be your paid search. Your SEO can only take you so far in most cases, and a lot of times paid search is going to be that bottom of the funnel, last click conversion point. So that is the one that you want to go after first before you start looking at other types of digital advertising.
Gotcha.
I would agree with that. If you have a limited budget, Google Ads are going to be the playground where you start to learn what your consumers are looking for. So you're going to have a good base of your ads out there, and then over 3-6 months, you're going to start evaluating that, and you're going to see what's working, what's drawing in, what's not working, what's bringing in good traffic versus bad traffic. And then you can use that data to not only optimize those ads, but start optimizing your website, content, SEO, and all those things.
Yeah. And then not only just that, but you can use that data when you're looking at new platforms. That data can also be super helpful when you're looking at contextual targeting or that sort of thing for any other digital ads.
Yeah. So that's a lot, right? And I feel like we kind of created a circle there, right? You have strategy on one hand, then you have the testing, and on the other end of that is data, right? And that data feeds back into your strategy. So Ryan, can you kind of talk a little bit about what should you be paying attention to in a digital advertising strategy before you even go waste money on any platforms?
Before wasting money on platforms is definitely making sure that your, like I said before, the sales funnel is set up properly. We ran into an issue with GMS not too long ago where a lot of the tracking was not set up properly to begin with, and so we ran into this issue where we're seeing multiple duplicated conversion points that are tracked at multiple points. So what you want to do is to avoid that is set up your CRM pipeline to begin with, look at your GTM, your Google Tag Manager, and make sure that all of the points where you are converting is actually tagged properly, and that it's only tagged once within the platform so that you know that when you see a conversion on Google Ads, it is just one conversion and it is 100% accurate. Roberto, did you have stuff to say on that?
Yeah, from a business perspective, before you spend a dollar, obviously you have to understand what your business objectives are. What are you trying to achieve with your marketing dollars? Once you have those established, then you have to wrap marketing goals around that. So if your business objective is to generate revenue, which who here isn't, then you know your ads have to start generating new business. If it's simply awareness because you don't necessarily have a product to sell, maybe you have a long-tailed service that you're trying to get in front of people, then a lot of awareness and engagement is going to work. So I think those definitions, having that strategy, having the plan, having everything documented so that when leads or engagement starts flowing in, is it good or is it bad? Is it working or do we need to revise things so that it actually achieves the objectives?
Always start with the goals first.
Quick question about engagement and just brand awareness. How long, maybe, Roberto, did you guys give yourself to know if brand awareness was working? Because sometimes that's a catchy area. It could be working, but who knows? We may not get a return for another year or so.
When I finally find that out, I'll let you know.
Great answer.
Unfortunately, awareness is one of those squishy things that I don't even talk about to our senior leadership.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like it triggers them. Like, oh, you want to spend money on awareness? Great. Here's another marketing guy who just wants to spend my money.
Yeah.
So I definitely start at the bottom of the funnel with conversions, work my way up to engagement, and then once the pool is a little warmer and people understand things, that's when you start branding.
If I'm running a brand awareness campaign for a client, I would tell them to at least wait 3 months on the brand awareness before you make any movement or changes on that campaign. Because you are not going to know how effective it is until you reach a certain frequency of views to each consumer. So it takes somebody around 7 to 12 times to convert. So you're not going to get that immediately in 1 month without spending a ton of money. And hopefully we're not all starting our brand awareness dollars at like a huge extreme amount of dollars, but it is important to look at the frequency, make sure that people are seeing the ad as many times as possible before you scale that up.
Did you have something? You look like you were about to jump in.
No, not jump in. Just to bounce off your question again is, who here has seen a McDonald's commercial? Yeah, we all know who McDonald's is. We know what they make, what they sell, how to get it. A lot of their commercials aren't, hey, come in right now and buy a hamburger. It's just awareness, because every day somebody's born who has never heard of McDonald's, so they continuously have to be in front of people to remind them.
Awesome. So I'd love to get a little bit into the targeting and the personas. Like who are we targeting? Roberto, with a company like GMS, you have a relatively, I would say, wide customer range, right? Customer base. How do you define and interact with an agency to say, here's the type of clients that we want to go get? And then Ryan, if you could share, okay, here's how we take that from our clients and turn it into campaigns that actually go get those kinds of people.
So lucky for GMS, we've been around for 30 years. So we actually started with existing data of our current clients and past clients. We ran all of that together and we said, okay, historically, this is who we can successfully serve. Because we start at the top of the funnel. I forget the acronym in the marketing textbook. But we can serve any and all small business that have at least one employee, up to 500 employees, and most industries except for government and education, just because they have systems that they basically are forced to use and they can't work with people like us. So if you look at it that way and you go, okay, well, if I go to the government website and I look up SMBs, if you look at the United States, it's literally hundreds of thousands of businesses. But not every single one of those is an ideal client of ours. So we start to segment that by industry, by the size of it, because we do have a sweet spot. Even though we can serve up to a certain number of people, we know the 100-person firm is going to be somebody who's going to raise their hand first and say, yeah, we need your help. So we start with all of that data, and then we sort of build the persona of who that person looks like. Because now we have the firmographics, right? Now we know what the companies are going to be looking like, but what do the business owners look like? Those are the people who have to say, yep, I need your services and I'm willing to spend the money. So now we start looking at different industries saying, okay, well, if you're a small business owner in construction, what are your pain points? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to avoid? And then we can build the lookalike based off of that.
Yeah, there was a lot to distill down from there. It's all good. So when we're usually after somebody like Roberto goes through that process, their marketing team will come up with customer personas, or our agency will come up with customer personas based off of what we found out. So the example going back to McDonald's, your customer might be a mother of two that needs a quick meal after school. So you'll create a customer persona trying to create somebody like that, and then match your targeting to fit that. So if I'm going after a mother of two who's looking for restaurants, I would set a female demo target. I would set an age target of what would be a mother's. I would set a has kids target that goes into your audience kind of actions. And then I would look at what they're most interested in. Behavioral targeting is huge right now, but it's losing quality as years go on. But you can find third-party data out there to go for, oh, this person's interested in fast food. This person's interested in burgers. You layer all of that targeting together, and then that's how you get to a good campaign.
Awesome. So that gets really deep, right? Once you start getting into that, customer intent, right? So looking kind of more at the agency relationship, and I do want to kind of put a notice to the room. I told Roberto this is not a commercial for TKG today. We want real insights to how companies interact with agencies or how they execute digital advertising themselves, right? So Roberto, Are there any specific examples of sticking points or troubles that you see when engaging with an agency, especially in those first few quarters where you're doing a lot of that testing, you're trying things, some things aren't working?
Sure. The one thing that I've seen, and it's not just with TKG, I've worked with a lot of agencies over my career, and I've even worked at agencies at the beginning of my career. And it seems like you run across the personality type that says, hey, I'm the client, I'm paying you a lot of money, go do the work. But that's not necessarily how it works, right? It's a relationship. And before you enter that relationship, you gotta have your house cleaned up. You have to have all of these planning documents in place. Now granted, a lot of agencies will help you do that, but you have to have the raw information available to give them those answers so that they can build the personas, build the strategy, and do all of that. Because me, as one of the business leaders at GMS, I know our business a whole lot better than the agency does. Now, give it a few years, they might finally be able to come back to me and say, hey, this is what we're seeing, this is what we recommend. For now, though, I'm leading the charge, I'm sort of directing them, I'm giving them a lot of information to distill, and then hopefully they start to understand it as well as I do.
Yeah. And we're slowly but surely understanding GMS as the days go by, but there's always going to be things that you run into, whether it be content creation, ad copy, where you're going to need the client's perspective on that. And that's why it's important to always set up a good process to begin with when developing a relationship with either an agency or your client. It's good to set up a process for communication. It's good to set up a process for reviewing creatives, reviewing campaigns before they go live. So you get everybody's eyeballs on it. You need the client's eyeballs and the marketing expert's eyeballs.
Yep, awesome. So we all know that things don't always 100% go up and to the right? That's the nature of being human and living in this world. So I think we were chatting yesterday, us three, about a specific example where a campaign didn't quite go 100% to plan. Roberto, can you share a little bit of insight on what was it like coming to us and saying, hey, this is wrong?
Well, because it's funny what you said, not everything goes up to the right. This campaign was going up and to the right. And so they're celebrating. They're like, hell yeah, we're doing our job. And I'm like, no, you're not.
I thought I was the savior, to be honest. I thought I was coming in here.
It was well built. It had good intentions. So we had built a competitor campaign to try to offset some of the leakage that our competitors were actually taking from us. So what we did, we set up a Google campaign, we started using their names and keywords, and so every time somebody would search for them, hopefully we popped up, they would click on us and go, oh wow, GMS, I want to look at them too. We got tons of eyeballs, tons of clicks, tons of phone calls, tons of form fills. Unfortunately, the hundreds and thousands of people who were contacting us were other clients' employees who were looking for their HR department to have a complaint.
Nice.
I can't tell you how many angry emails and phone calls I got from my internal folks going, what the hell are you doing? And so we had to essentially shut off the valve and say, okay, no more of that because that's wasting a lot of money and a lot of internal time.
How long did that run until you figured that out?
Ooh, it was probably a good quarter, if not more.
It was a good quarter. And part of that is we were hesitant to turn it off right away. You start up a new campaign, you don't want to turn it off right away because you don't want to be responding to daily volatility. And this campaign in particular looked great on our end of things. The numbers were great. But what we found out, is that the quality of those leads were not there. And so it's good to make sure that you're optimizing towards qualified leads,
correct,
not just overall leads.
And
Absolutely.
Just be aware, because we have some Goliath of competition, ADP, Paychecks, those types of companies. They have hundreds of thousands of worksite employees that roll up to them. We have 60,000 worksite employees. So we were up against a mountain of humans that were searching for very specific things, and we were showing up for it.
Yeah, so Ryan, you kind of touched on this. When you're initially testing and tracking these campaigns and you're spending some money, so you want to pay attention to it, what are kind of some initial signals that you start to get. If, I guess, Roberto, that's more of a question for you from the client side. And then I think it's important to note that agency-client relationship, right? As an agency, we can look at the campaign and say, this is great, they're getting hundreds of leads, things are perfect, but without that insight from the client on here's how many sales came out of that, I think that's a really key distinction, is that we should be optimizing for the revenue, not the lead, right?
Well, and our sales cycle is pretty long, just because of the nature of what we do and the clients that we're serving. So my measure of success is marketing qualified lead. So we run any form fill, any phone call through our rubric and say, okay, does this match a valid person who is possibly a prospect? Once that happens, it goes to sales, and then they evaluate it and they market it as a sales qualified lead, SQL. But all of that is fine and dandy until we start to see, okay, how many of those leads turned into meetings? How many of those meetings turned into quotes to be filled out? And then how many of those quotes turned out to be contracts signed? That's the end goal, right? Every single one of our interactions is to try to get a signed contract. So the quality of the leads coming through is ultimately what we start measuring. But we can't truly see that for likely 6 months. That's when we start to see the effects of the dollar spent 6 months ago. So if I start to see the quality, and it's not necessarily quantity, but if I see the quality come through, then yes, that campaign's doing its job. If it's just a bunch of rubbish and the sales people start to yell at me, I know that we've got some red flags and I have to make some phone calls.
Yeah.
So what types of metrics, specifically, and Ryan, you could probably get down to like some example numbers, should a business owner be looking at to kind of suss out if a campaign is working or on its way to working?
Yeah. Well, the number will change depending on your industry, but your big metrics that you want to look at, your main KPIs, are going to be that CPA, your cost per acquisition. This is the big metric that we want to be focusing on with GMS going forward, is reducing the price or the cost it takes to get to that lead. Over time, you can look at impressions, clicks. This is what we would call like a vanity metric. It's cool, it's good to know that people are coming to the site, that people are clicking on the ads, but at the end of the day, it's not helpful information whatsoever unless it actually converts into leads. So the main ones to look at are going to be your cost per acquisition, and then also that final lead number of qualified leads.
Cost per acquisition is probably the biggest thing that my executive team looks at, right? Because they know what the lifetime value is of that client. They know how much it would probably cost for one of our seasoned sales reps to sit at their desk and make enough phone calls to earn that same level of contract. So they can do the math and say, okay, I can pay marketing $1,000 to get this, or I can pay sales $1,000. Now, that's seldomly equal. So then they start looking at it and go, okay, which one's more efficient? If the marketing leads are actually closing at a higher percentage rate, then why don't we dump more money into that? If marketing sucks, why don't we hire another sales rep who can actually make more phone calls and close the deals faster?
Yep. So I'd love to next kind of touch on the almost art of digital advertising. We've talked a lot about metrics and tracking and strategy. Is there room for some trust, some gut feeling in digital advertising? We get so caught up in the tracking in the digital world because it's easy. I said easy. But thinking back 20 years ago when billboards and newspaper ads were the best bet, there was no tracking, right? Next to no tracking. So how does the psychology of advertising play into digital ads?
So if you had a whiteboard, draw a line down the middle, I would put data analytics on the right. That means everything after a campaign has been executed, you can start to use real numbers to look back and say, this is what this campaign did. But in order to make that campaign successful, on the left side is psychology, it's art, it's gut. If you're in marketing and you've never read anything about behavioral economics, I think that's a great study to start looking into, because it's the reasoning behind why consumers do what they do and why they buy what they buy. And I think that's the psychology, that's the artwork in getting to the point of spending that first dollar, so that you're actually trying to talk to the people who are going to make the decision quicker.
Yeah, I like to use data whenever I can to make decisions, especially when it relates to paid campaigns. But at a certain point, there's certain things that will not, there's no data that can back it up, and you have to make just a gut decision. And a lot of times that ends up being with creative. You can run creative A/B tests, you can compare metrics to see what works better. But when you're first starting a brand new campaign, the sky's the limit. So what you can do there is look at your competitor ads. You can look at ads that you've run in the past, see what performs. But when it comes down to it, it's going to be a gut decision. What do you think is going to look good and help your company convert?
Absolutely.
Roberto, how much does your executive team trust your gut decision? And how did that develop over time?
So right now, I think I've earned their trust. So I've only been with GMS for about a year and a half.
Okay.
The company I told you was 30 years old. Marketing as a discipline is only 5 years old at the company. For 25 years, it was get at your desk, cold call until you're dead, and we will make the business happen. And it was very successful. But I think with changing times, somebody finally raised their hand and they were like, have you guys ever heard of marketing? This might actually be like what we need in order to break through sort of the modern day, because who here answers their phone when it's a strange number? Seldomly do you.
All the sales guys are.
Yeah. I get weird phone calls and I'm like, absolutely not. Especially because I know my information is out there in the world. I have a title, I'm in a buying position, and people are trying to get a hold of me. Now what's funny is I'm on the flip side of that, trying to convince those people to trust the strange phone call when our people call.
Yeah. That's kind of funny. So I appreciate a lot of this insight into kind of metric tracking and
You know what? I didn't answer your question. They don't trust me. Everything I propose, I have to come at them with data. I have to show, I have to show a business case. And these guys actually helped me the first time around to say, okay, if I invested, what did we say, $15,000 a month, something like that, in this one channel, what is the proposed return on that, given the impressions, the clicks, the click-through, and then the form fills and the phone calls? And so they did some really good keyword research and some looking at competitor research, and they said, okay, if you invest that much money in this platform, it looks like you can expect this many form fills for those dollars. Yep. And then we said internally, all right, well, we have nothing else to really match that against. So if we're going to compare this as an equal to what sales is doing, we know that for every 10 clients they get in front of, one of those is going to close. So every 10 marketing deals that we get in there, one of them is going to close. So they did the math backwards and said, okay, well, if I spend this much money, we're going to secure this many contracts, we're net plus.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, Roberto. There is some math that we can work backwards, right? Ryan, maybe you can add some flavor as to how much can you trust that? And then if you could maybe share, did that actually happen, right? Did that 15,000?
I'm still here, so luckily it worked. there's
That
the
one did.
art form in the gut feel.
That one did. Yeah, so can you trust projections? And then maybe what's an easy way to go do that on a small scale?
You can trust projections when you're looking at forecasting and you can clearly see the reasonings behind the decisions made in the forecasting. If they're pulling a CTR number out,
Click-through rate.
If they're pulling that number just out of thin air and then applying that to your campaign to figure out, oh, so this is what it's going to end up being, well, no, you can't just use an average number for the industry or an average number overall. You have to use historical data for GMS in particular or this client in particular to get to that forecasting results. Now, we built an executive summary for Roberto's team for him to share to leadership team. That condenses all of the ad spend into one place. and allows executives to get a quick overview of this many impressions were bought, this many clicks were bought, and this is how many leads we got. And this is the CRM data to back that up. So that's kind of what we did for GMS and to get that conversation with the executives to go through. So.
And I begged them to be conservative with the numbers. I was not going to go in there and blow sunshine up them because I knew that was going to go poorly for me.
And I think we blew those numbers out of the water already.
We have.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, obviously, big company, sophisticated company, good CRM system, probably tied in using the same CRM, or at least they're linked, right, between what you guys are using?
Right now, there's a little bit of issues with GMS because of the health insurance side of things, so we can't see everything.
You get those click-throughs, I guess, of tracking and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the room that probably only have 10, 15, 20 employees, don't have a sophisticated system. How are they able to track those conversions if they don't have an internal CRM?
Yeah, if you don't have a sophisticated system, the best way to go about it then is through Google Analytics, looking at your leads. You can use Google Tag Manager to tag certain events on your website to get an idea of what is converting. And then also when you're running the ads, add something called UTM parameters. I know I'm getting into a lot more acronyms.
Yeah, I don't know what
But that's basically a tracking tag that you're going to put at the end of a link so that you know that where each person came from when they make an event on your website.
So you won't like my answer. Excel.
Yeah.
That's what
Everything he's talking about is before, right? Which is fine. Agencies are going to do that, but then the onus is on the small company who has 10 people and like one version of Excel that's probably 25 years old to go in there and somehow say, okay, this phone call came in and this form fill came in. How do I track that manually and then force the salespeople to give me updates every single time they meet with them or close a deal on it? And then you basically have to sit on top of people, go back to the spreadsheet, fill it out so that you can use that as the source of truth.
And hopefully,
It ain't pretty,
your
but
agency
it
is coming
works.
to you saying, where's the spreadsheet? What are your salespeople saying? Are the leads good? Are they turning into revenue for your business, right? That's part of the agency's responsibility is to make sure that our campaigns are providing revenue.
Yeah, and you got to close that loop too. So like you take the unqualified leads, you learn from that, you adjust your keywords, you do that. But then you take the qualified leads, you take that list, download it, and then you upload it to whatever ad platform you're running and utilize that first party data so that you can tell that platform what the winners look like and what they should be going after. Should always be a closed loop in terms of marketing. You shouldn't just end it with the lead. Use that information. You worked so hard to earn that information. Use that in your advertising.
Yep, absolutely. There's so many whiteboardable things. I keep wishing that I had a whiteboard behind me. But let's talk a little bit about the future of advertising, right? The AI is in every conversation right now. Where do you guys see AI coming into play? Is it on ad creation or placement, or maybe it's persona creation, right? Where's AI going to play a part in advertising, and do we think that ChatGPT is going to replace Google? That was a little bit.
At this point, ChatGPT replacing Google is up in the air. So, you know, they just launched their new advertising on ChatGPT. So we'll see how ads on ChatGPT works. I'm already seeing a lot of dip in organic traffic and increase in ChatGPT referrals. So who knows where that will go. I can say that in each of these platforms, whether it be Meta or Google, they're integrating AI and new AI tools at an alarming rate. They add in a new kind of product pretty much every month for us to test out and see. And about 70% of the time, it's terrible. It's not ready to launch. You shouldn't just jump on every new AI product out there because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. A good example of this is PMax campaigns on Google Ads. This is a new AI-driven campaign. Well, it'll look at your website and pull keywords that it thinks it will work. At the end of the day, you have to continually check that because you have no idea what keywords it's choosing on its own. And sometimes it could be choosing a bunch of brand terms or your company name and advertising for that. So if you're looking at paid search and a bunch of people are clicking on ads that are after searching up your name, well, you're paying for clicks that you were going to get anyway. You're cannibalizing your SEO efforts. So you want to avoid just jumping on every new AI trend out there and using all forms of AI in your ad creation as well, because sometimes the quality dips and it's not there yet. So take your time with AI. Don't jump into the deep end immediately.
Yeah, and it's just a tool. Right now, it's a tool that we should be using. We should be learning from it. It should be learning from us so that it can make us better. But just like anything, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the brains in your head to tell it what it needs to know, it's going to spit out garbage. So I use it probably from point A all the way to point Z, but I am there steering, I am there making sure it's accurate, I'm there, it's what I want, things like that. Now I will say, because we're a Salesforce shop, and we have employed grading and scoring. So we know when leads are coming in, it automatically knows if you've clicked on links, if you've downloaded anything. And years ago, they developed our own GMS score so that we could see what leads are looking like, what prospects are looking like. Just now, we implemented the AI version of it, and it's about 75% more accurate. So now we know more intel about the prospects that are coming in that are actually worth chasing. So AI has its place, right? Because it learns a whole lot quicker than some dude sitting in a dark room in the basement trying to analyze data.
I'm the guy in the basement analyzing. Yeah, like he said, AI is a tool. You can't use it for everything. When you see ad copy out there that's 100% AI generated, you can tell. Everybody knows the M dash out there. When you see AI created ads, sometimes they look weird. Has anybody seen the Coca-Cola AI ad recently? I think it was on the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, yeah.
Yeah, not a fan of that ad personally, but to each their own. You have to be careful about when you use it. Sometimes when some new like AI creative, sometimes it'll just scream AI, and that can lower the quality of the brand itself. It makes the brand look cheap. So something to look out for.
Yep. Awesome. So I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and we'll open up for questions in a minute or two here. I do want to ask one last kind of wrap-up question, right? Going back to the beginning, this is about building a system, right? A revenue-generating system, not just a test here, test there, right? The tests are going to be in the system, but that system has to ultimately be fronted with strategy and backed up by data. What are the first two things that you would recommend to a business owner to do to start that system?
You want to start?
Ryan?
This one's off the top of my head, so
Yeah, thank you for that one.
You should have stuck to the
first
script,
one
man.
thing.
So you said first.
Yeah,
two
what's
things.
the first thing? Is it setting up Google Analytics? Is it setting up,
Yeah.
first
Definitely.
thing you do?
First thing you want to do is make sure your website's at a place where you can actually convert. Set up your forms in there, then set up your Google Analytics with the proper tags and triggers and everything that your website guy will tell you about and you'll forget about. And then the second thing you'll do is kind of pick out your platform. I think we said before, Google Ads is a great early first platform to get into. If you're a B2C company, maybe that's not correct. If you're a B2C company, maybe you're trying to go after awareness first. So maybe Meta is the way to go. But look at your goals and try to pick out the platform to match those goals.
Yeah, I liked your first part. So it's sort of like if you're hosting a party at your house, are you going to clean? Are you going to get organized? Are you going to stock the fridge? You're going to do everything possible so that when your friends and family come over, it looks good and they feel welcomed. So if you've got a website that is half broken, it doesn't say much, there's no form to fill out, the content is crap, then if somebody lands on that website, they're immediately going to lose trust. They're not going to know who you are, what you do, and how you do it. So why should they fill out a form or pick up the phone? So the first thing to do is make sure the website is good. It's the whole hub and spoke model. The website is the hub, anything that is directing to or from that website are the spokes. So if you expect those spokes to deliver good qualified leads, then the home has to be cleaned up and ready to go.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say on the spokes analogy is those spokes are becoming bigger and bigger pieces of your digital footprint every day. With AI, there's these bots can understand so much more context about your brand and all of those digital assets and platforms without them being inherently tied to each other, right? Google was good at doing that in relation to other people's websites. AI is much better at looking at your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your all of these different platforms and contextualizing that into your brand reputation. So that's kind of the last thing that I will say.